Welcome back to Hooner's Garage, and it's Easter weekend, so I'm hoping I'm going to get 4 days solid in the garage, which would be great. So I'm not going to do one video for each day. I'm going to do one video covering the whole weekend, because I'm just not going to have time to edit it and upload it in between evenings. So I just think it's easier just to do one whole video. So what will it be on Friday? The first thing to do is check out the plastics for the TZR. I've obviously got that running, which I'm still really happy about, but just I'm actually amazed it started. I knew the engine was alright, but the wiring for the engine was the only bit that I hadn't been able to test, and I built that wiring loom from scratch. It's a whole new wiring loom that's gone in there. So the engine electrics was the only bit I hadn't been able to test. So I had actually thought on that, because I came out on Friday and I thought, right, tonight I'm just going to argue with the TZR until it fires. And that was the only plan that I made for the entire evening. So for it to fire up almost straight away was great, but it also then left me with okay, I haven't actually thought of what else it is I'm going to do. So I ended up just doing a bit of tidying up, just doing a bit of housekeeping, because it's just, okay, completely blank mind, which isn't unusual. So I've got the plastics out for that. I painted those last week, and I came out, the paint said 24 hours, leave it 24 hours to harden before you do anything with it. I left it just over, well, it was over 24 hours, it was a day and a half. Came out to check them out, and I ended up putting a fingerprint in the mudguard, which is just by where the fork leg is, so I think the fork leg is going to cover it, so I'm not overly worried about it. We'll see what it looks like when it's on. But they've actually come out quite well, I'm quite pleased with them. So I'll have a look at those first, and then it's going to be the ongoing battle with the Senda, because I just want that out of my garage now. I'm starting to hate the sight of it. I got a refund for the tail light, which is just a cheap one that I bought off of eBay, because I can't buy the original equipment because it's just too expensive. I think the people who own it want to sell it once I've done the work to it, once it's got an MOT on it. So in order to make that work, I have to buy, really cheap parts I probably wouldn't want to put on my own bike, if you see what I mean. The tail light was just a joke. I had two lights, white and red, but they're selling it as a tail light, a stop tail light. But obviously in this country that's illegal. You can't have a white light on the back of the bike. So I got a refund for that. I got a wiring diagram, hopefully much closer to that bike than what I've got at the moment. I contacted both Derby and, is it Derby or Derby? Derby. So I contacted Derby and I contacted Fowler's, the nearest dealer that we've got. Derby told me to contact Fowler's. Chap at Fowler's, a guy called Scott, gave him the frame number so that he can have a look for one, and he sent me one for a slightly different bike, for a slightly different model. So the Derby Senda, but it's a SM Badger, whereas this one is a DRD. So I don't know how different the wiring diagrams are for them, but that was the only one he had, which I kind of find that kind of odd that Derby refer me to the dealer when I would assume that they've got one, but the dealer doesn't have one. So for that model, it strikes me as a bit odd. I don't know. I don't really know much what goes on behind dealerships, but there must be a wiring diagram somewhere for that bike. Derby must have one, at least Derby. They must have one for that bike. But he sent me one that's fairly close, so hopefully I can carry on the argument with the Speedo and I can get that sorted. Once the Speedo's done and the new rear light arrives and I get that plumbed in, then I think that's pretty much it as far as MOT readiness goes. So all I've got to do then is contact them, arrange an MOT, contact them, they come and pick the bike up, they take it down there, they get it the MOT and it's gone. I don't have to worry about it anymore. But I need to sort out that Speedo. It's just a cheap one from China, and yeah, I don't like it. I'm starting to wish that I'd bought a more expensive one, so the same one that's on the GSX, the Coso, maybe not one that expensive, but a better one that might have been easier to wire in. But I think the main issue with that is I'm pretty sure I know what all the cables do on the Speedo. It's finding which feed from the wiring loom on the bike does what, because the diagrams I've got, I said not all the colours match up, and I can't be 100% sure that the colour that goes, if it's the same colour, say blue and white, on that diagram does the same thing as a blue and white cable does on that bike. So it's a bit hit and miss at the moment, but there we go. Right, so yeah, that's about it. Hopefully we can get some progress done on the Derby. But first of all, let's take a look at the plastics. Right, this is not the best light to see by, but yeah, it's definitely not the best light to see by. That is, I'm quite chuffed with that. There's no scratches in it. Last time all the scratches showed up. I don't know if it's because I put the paint on too thin, didn't put enough on, but I think there was 2 large cans went onto this lot, so there should be enough paint in it. I'm quite chuffed with it. It's not perfect. There are a couple of, I don't know if the camera will pick them out, just there. Oh no, that's a corner. There's a couple of bumps in it. There's a couple where I think dust or something has been has stuck to it. There we go. It comes into focus then. So you can see the way the light shines off it. I hope the camera can pick up. But there's a couple of little, but there's nothing major in all honesty. There's a bit of dust on them where they've been stood. But the fingerprint that I put in, because it had right there, but that's right behind where the fork leg goes. So I'm hoping that I can hide it with that. The only other issue I've got is there's a blister there. For some reason the paint blister, that's not a bump, that's an actual blister. An air pocket, an air bubble. And yeah, this one came out alright as well. Again, I think there's a fingerprint on this one. Yeah, and just there where I was holding it out, because I thought it'd been over 24 hours. It said 24 hours to fully harden. That was obviously not true. So that's just a bit of dust. So yeah, I'm not too unhappy with that. I think the problem with the dilemma that I face with these at the moment is, do I sand them down? Because I can use a very fine sandpaper to sand these perfectly flat and then get the polish out and just buff them up so that they start to shine again. I could do, it just depends whether or not I think it's necessary, because they're not bad. I'm quite pleased, like I said, I'm quite pleased with them, but they're not perfect. So I'm kind of debating in my mind as to whether or not I should get the really fine wet and dry out and give it a sand down. I probably will, to be honest, because I do want this to be as best, the best that I can do it, and I think that's pretty close to the best that I can do it. But it would just be nice to get some of these little bumps out. There's one there, yeah, you can catch that one. Just a little bit of dust that's got caught in the paint. But I think if we use something like a 2000 or 2500 grit sandpaper, wet and dry, I should be able to just smooth those out without going through to the paint. But then if I do, then I'll just get some more cans of spray paint and we start again. But like I said, quite pleased with that. So here's the Derby, new plastics, new chain guard. That bit was £72 for that white bit of plastic there, and this much bigger bit of plastic was 16. And the reason that was 16 and that was 72 is because that one is just white, whereas this one is exactly the same white but with that sticker on it. So apparently that sticker is worth 60 quid. Something like that. Unreal, unbelievable, considering that was 16. So, but it's all now looking like it's a motorcycle again. New headlight, new indicators front and rear. Had to make that bracket to hang the indicators off. I wasn't going to spend another 72 quid on another bracket, so I've put that one back on, even though there's a broken lug on it, but it holds, so that's fine. I still don't know about the mud guard, but considering how expensive everything else was, I'm hoping that that will suffice, but they'll fail it or pass it. New headlight, again just a cheapy one from eBay, horrible wiring, and this is the clock. Still got this cover on it. So it's a rev counter, speedo, gear selection, multi-function thing that doesn't seem to want to work. but hopefully the new wiring diagram will sort it out. There's a new ignition on it. The seats with the ignition system, the ignition that I bought came with 2 of these, so we can get a new lock, so the seat actually locks in place. It's an offset bracket that locks the seat to the bike. I did have a go of making one with some of this stuff, but that was proven to be a pain in the backside when I noticed that the back end here of the lock, same as that one, has an offset bracket to lock that, because it was a server door, to the cabinet. And so I took it off, put it on there, shaved it down a bit, and it works. So that was a stroke of luck. The speedo it doesn't run off the sensors in here. There's 3 or 4 magnets that go around the wheel on the disc, and I've made a little bracket that sits in there, and the cable runs down the side, so it runs like that, and I've still got to set that up once I can get the clock going. But yeah, it's starting to look more like a bike. Right, this one seems to be a little bit more friendly. So basically, these are the cables that go to the speedo. This is the cabling off the loom from the bike. So this, all I'm doing with these is taking a small length of cable, getting one of those crimpy things, technical terms, at each end. Just cut the O down. See if I can get that to focus on that better. So cut the O down so it's like a point, and then you can poke it in there for each of the, as you can see with these ones, for each of the cables off there, and then poke the other end into the clock to see what it does. So I think I've got the neutral light, well, I say I think, I probably haven't, but there we go. There's one in there, which I think is that green and black one there. I've got to connect it to a green and red one in there, and then hopefully we'll see if we get the neutral light come up. Well, the wiring diagram, it's close, but it's not right. It's not the right diagram for the job, but it does give me something to go on. With the better translation I've got for that, we do have some success. So now when we turn it, we get the unit powers up. It's 7 point soon. There they go. Get the numbers in there, and the neutral light works. So plus plus. Now I know which ones are the indicators because I've actually already had those going on this unit. So the only thing I think I need to sort out on that now is the rev camera, which is a bit around the outside. But in order to do that, I need to try and get this thing started. I have no idea how old the fuel is in that, so that might have to get emptied into the black petrol can so I can dispose of it responsibly. Take all the old fuel out and then connect the dummy tank up and see where we go with that, if I can connect the dummy tank up, which may well mean I have to take all this off again. Yeah, okay, no worries. Right, I did have the neutral light and the clocks working off the ignition, so I wired those ones in nice and tidy, loving a new soldering iron, and now the neutral light doesn't work, so I'm scratching my head a bit. I've been going backwards over it, I've checked the wires, I made a list of what connects to what before I connected them. I did them one at a time, so I'm not quite sure what's gone on there. So what I've decided to do is I've put the battery back on charge, and I'm going to wheel this one out, and I'm going to have a little test of the plastics on the TZR. I'm going to give the Senda a miss for a second, because I tend to find that sometimes if you're faced with a problem, if you just sit there and think about it and look at it and try and puzzle over it, you end up going nowhere. Sometimes it's better just to put it over to one side, do something else for a bit, and sort of clear your mind of that issue. So what I've decided to do is, on the fingerprint, which you can't really see on this camera, I'm just going to rub it down. I've got some 1200 grit wet and dry, some water, I've got some polish, so I'm just going to test it on that. I'm not going to do any of the other body panels yet, I'm just going to do that fingerprint because it is hidden by the fork leg, so if there's a major belly up then I can patch it and it'll be hidden, so that's not too much of an issue. But on the other hand, it might turn out alright, in which case, job done, I can do the rest of it. We'll see how it goes. But first of all, wet and dry that with a 1200 grit, and then I've got some regular car polish, and then just apply that afterwards to just buff it up. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Right, so the 1200 grit has taken all the fingerprint wrinkles out. It's left it this dull colour, so I'm just going to put a bit of just normal polish on it and see if that brings it back up. Right, it's not the best light to be seeing it under, but that bit that is really smooth. It's quite surprising, just with the 1200 grit and polish, that how unsmooth this is. It's orange peel, very faint orange peel. That is lovely. So I think, with that being a test piece, that the rest of this is going to get sanded down with 1200 grit wet and dry and then polished. And hopefully it should be nice and smooth then. Nice. Well, I've got to say, I do prefer the smooth finish to the orangey peel finish. I do much prefer that. So I'm glad I decided to do it. And there's still a few bits here. You can see where it's spotted. That's where I haven't sanded it down enough. And then there's one or two places where I may have gone a bit over the top. Or the judges didn't put enough paint on it, because it only just went through the speckles. But this is all a learning curve, this is all a test, so if I have to respray these again, then fine, it's no problem for me. I'm quite happy to spray them again, but then I will sand them down again and then polish them again so they come up with this nice smooth finish, because that is, I really like that. On day two, I'm going to carry on with the TZR plastics. This all looks it looks worse on camera than it does in real life. This is all obviously scuffed up from the 1200 grit I applied to it yesterday. Went through there. I wasn't pressing overly hard, so it's possible that I didn't put enough paint on this part here. But I'm just kind of treating this as a practice run for when I do the final paint job. If this had turned out well, then this would have been a final paint job, but it's all a learning curve. But it has highlighted a couple of theirs. I don't know if you can see it there. It's not the best light, but there we go. There's a hole there. I don't know if that's paint or that. There's a little one there. There's also a run or scratch all the way down the back. I don't know if we can see it. There. Starts up here and goes all the way down. So there's a couple of other blemishes on it. There's another hole there. So I think this one will be, when I do this properly, I shall have to invest in some fill-in primer and a few other bits. So I stopped off at a Motor Factor today and bought some 2000 grit paper. I was going to buy this stuff from Halfords, but I read the reviews on that, and apparently once it's wet it goes completely to pot. You get maybe 5 minutes of sanding with it and then it's done. So went to the local Auto Factors and got some 2004 sheets of 2000 grit, so hopefully that's better, and some T-cut. And the reason for the T-cut is, having watched a few videos from Custom Spray Mods and a few other places, when you get this orange peel that I've got, that speckled effect, when you get rid of that, you've got to sand it down and then apply a polish to it. Well, I'm kind of thinking like it's like a minor cutting compound. Well, that's a minor cutting compound. So I'm kind of thinking the 2000 grit or the 1200 grit, then the 2000 grit, then the T-cut, then the polish. And then that should hopefully make this stand out really well. But we'll see how that goes. Like I said, it's all a test. I've got the bucket set up. I got a cup of, that's actually a cup of coffee rather than a cup of tea. Oh, and an urn. I got given an urn. So now all I need now is a fridge to keep the milk cool and a tap, and we're good. So, some water for the wet and dry. Bodywork that needs to be completed. You can see this speckled effect is where I'm sanding off the top of the orange peel effect, and these are the bits that I've yet to get back down to flat, and you can see there's some all over the place on this, so a bit more work on that. We'll see what that looks like. So after mucho elbow grease, and it's still not, there's a lot of work still needs to go in on it, more T-cut to get rid of the marks from the sanding, but that is, I forget how many times now I've applied T-cut on that, quite a few, plenty of elbow grease, and then a bit of this recycling, well not recycling, this is some car polish that my grandfather had, so I've whacked a bit of that on there, and I have to say it is looking pretty good between that finish, which looks very orangey peel, to that finish, which is, that feels so smooth, but it does highlight little blemishes in the paintwork, but that I'm really pleased with that. So I think that's going to be the method for the final paint. I am going to carry on working on these and probably that, just to see what I can do with it, and if nothing else then for practice. But yeah, I'm definitely liking that finish. Right, it's going okay. There was a lot of swirling. This stuff dries apparently to a haze. No, it's not going to focus. This stuff apparently dries to a haze, and I tried to buff it out and it wouldn't. But then I did put some polish on it. I think it was the one after that it went on. So, but this is just T-cut. It's going on nice. Where I've gone through some of the edges here, this is like I said before, this is highlighted. Obviously, where I didn't put enough paint on, there's some around the edges around there as well, or I'm rubbing too hard when I'm sanding. But it's coming along. It is coming along. So it is 1200, 2000 T-cut polish. So while I'm waiting for that one to dry, I'm actually going to continue practicing on that side panel. Take what I've learned here and apply it there. Right, I was hoping to do this out there in the natural light, but it is a bit breezy, and I don't know what the microphone's like on this, but this is the fender. Gone through to the, starting to go through to the paint underneath there, primer and that underneath, so I've gone through a few spots. Again, highlights where I didn't put enough paint or have rubbed too hard with the sandpaper. But that is smooth, and yeah, I'm very pleased with that. Showing up some, it's a good job. It's not bad for a test run. I mean, had I have stuck with the original, then that wouldn't have been an issue. But the whole idea of this project is to look at it and go, can I do better? Can I make that better? And I looked at the paint finish and thought, yeah, I can make that better. So that's what this is about. So I've been practicing, so taking what I've learned from that and putting it on here. I've sanded that down with some 1200 grit, and that's got rid of most of the orange peel. There's still a few bits, of it floating around, and actually I've gone through the paint there. Again, it shows me where I haven't painted it thick enough, which again I think is down to the speed and the distance at which I was away from it. So there was lots and lots and lots. It's about 5 coats went on, but they must have only been very thin coats to go through it that quick. So, but now I'll rub that down with some 2000 grit to try and get rid of the rest of the orange peel. Right, so that's 2000 grit, wet and dry. Most of the orange peel is gone. There's just like patches of it now. Again, I've gone through in a few places. So one thing I learned from using this stuff on the fender, these microfiber cloths didn't work for me for this. The reason I was getting the swells, I think, is because this is not a smooth surface. It's a fluffy surface. So that was causing grooves in here, which was making it a pain to do. As soon as I moved over and started using just a piece of cotton, it all started going right. So now we're going to start with a piece of cotton on that. So after some polishing and some buffing and some polishing and some buffing, I'm thinking this isn't looking like a satin finish anymore. This is looking like a high gloss finish. So it turns out all the videos that I've been watching have been gloss videos. I haven't actually looked at any that have got off a satin finish. So basically what I've done is what I'm sure many of you would have already commented and noted, is that I've just basically buffed a satin paint gloss, as I understand it, which I have to laugh about because I think probably because this is the finish that I wanted, but I wanted it in a satin. But the whole thing with the satin, let's put this back in focus, the whole thing with the satin finish is that it's, as I understand it, it's not flat. If you want that finish, it's pretty much gloss, as I understand it. Although I did just check out the front forks on the TZR, which I also sprayed a satin black, and they didn't orange peel anywhere near as much. But it has been quite relaxing sitting in the garage just buffing this up. Still, you know, I think it looks quite good. It's a bit of an extreme way to go to, but I now know that what I want is a gloss finish, which now puts extra pressure on because apparently they're the hardest. Because it is so flat, you have to get every single thing right, the slightest blemish, and it looks shit. So I'm not making life easy for myself at all. At all. I hope this isn't too windy, but I've been umming and ahhing and trying to get my head around what I'm going to do about the front end of Fudge, because it's the headlight thing I think is holding this up. I can't seem to find anything that fits. I don't really want to have to buy a headlight, even though I can get cheap ones. I really want to have to buy one if I can use what I've got. So yeah, front end of that one is going on that one. So I'll get those nice R1 calipers. Probably swipe the discs as well, to be fair. So it suddenly occurred to me that what I do have still is that. That's the original fairing from Fudge. So I've still got, it's a bit windy out there, just come stand in it, but I've still got all the original fairing, the fairing panels for that bike, and all the cage and everything else to mount the headlight. So I could put the original fairing back on, and this is where my brain went after that. All the bits that are snapped and broken on there, bolt them together with this, and then the screen, which is there, which I don't think I have anymore, or it's probably cracked to hell, made that out of that as well. That could look quite funky. So that is probably going to be the next stage for Fudge, is because then I can use that's got a lot of benefits. Because I now can use the original dashboard, so I don't need to worry about getting another dash, which is handy. I don't have to put in all the side panels next to the fairing and everything else. Again, just more of this, really. I can make something up that sits in probably, because I think all of her ones were broken or snapped or anything else. So hopefully I've found a use for this mesh, which is repairing the fairing for Fudge. Yeah, that's a definite possibility, I think. A definite possibility. Right, well it's a bit shorter than that because I can't fit it on exactly at the moment. So you have to imagine it a bit shorter. Not sold at all, not a fan. It doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look how I see it in my head. I like that aggressive, more aggressive front end. But having said that, use what you've got, and at the moment what I've got is this, and it does solve a lot of problems. It does create a few as well, because I drilled those out to hold those indicators, and that's where the side panels fit in there. But it snaps in a few places, but some of that server cabinet door mesh, some of that, couple of bolts through it, couple of bolts through this side holding it together. I reckon that would look alright. Yeah, and like I said, it uses what I've got available at the moment, which is pretty much that. Yeah, brilliant. And I can use the original clocks, but none of the plastic fairing stuff is going back in. If need be, I will make some plastic, the inserts, I'll make those out of that stuff as well. I'm not putting the nose cone back on without a fight. It's not really what I wanted. Well, that's the nose cone on. Put the frame in. I've managed to get this on. That's a fairing scoop on one side. It's missing on the other side. I've now got to find something to do with all of that. So that's probably going to get tucked up, I reckon, probably underneath here somewhere. I might have to redo the lunchbox idea. The indicator itself goes in that hole there, which on this side, I'll show you here, is about, let's see the thing, there's the scoop, there is about there. So, do I drill a hole through there? Get focused. Do I drill a hole through here, mount that to that, and then use that to pull the whole thing in? Or do I do something else with the indicators? The indicators used to be here. I've taken those out, and I'm going to put that mesh in there, because I don't want the indicators there. I want them where they were down there, which probably means I'm going to have to drill through the fairing to attach the indicators to the bike, which is going to be interesting. I have to do that side as well, and then I still have to find something to do with all that wiring. But this does solve a lot of the problems. The original clocks can go back in, no problem. Still got all the wiring there. These inserts, like I said, if I have to put anything here, I'm going to make it out of that if I can. So, or I might just leave it naked. We'll see. That's about it really, I think. Let's find something to do with that without the lunchbox. I'm kind of feeling that the lunchbox has to stay. It was been part of the bike for a while, so I'm kind of getting the feeling that the lunchbox has to stay. But it's not what I wanted, to be fair. To be honest, it's not what I wanted. I like it without that huge bit on the front. I like the naked look, just needed a little headlight, but I haven't got one. So here's use what you got, use what you can scrounge, yada yada. So I don't want to get in the habit of buying new shiny for it. The whole concept of this was, or the whole concept of rat biking, I guess, but the whole idea of this for me was to build something out of what I've got. Modification if necessary. But that I can't modify. Let me just put that back up so it doesn't fall over. There is a fair amount of damage though. this is was it this side it went over on? I believe it was this side it went over on. Smacked all that up. Nice cracks in, this paintwork is crap though. Nice crack in there as well, going all the way along there. There's one in on the other side there. I could have took a bit of a smash as well. I don't know what happened there. That took a bit of a crack as well. All of those I'll patch up with that. Just cut sections of it out, bolt, and bolt back on again. And then just give it a rub over with a Scotch-Brite. Take off as many of these air blisters as I can, because they just pop and do that whenever it warps and flexes. And then spray the whole thing matte black. Yeah, but not what I wanted. But there you go. So I've got the headlight on, that's all connected, the clocks are in. I put the fairing back on the front. I had it on the bench a second ago because I wanted to tidy that up. I wanted to reinforce all of these bits that are broken. And I think there looks like there's been some repairs there before, plus all the damage this time. And you've got this massive split here. You've got another crack there. You've got another one up here. There's some small ones in the fairing on the way up. It's not in a good shape. So the amount of work that's going to be needed to strengthen that up again. Well, it's not just the work, it's the how to do it. I was thinking maybe I could replace this whole corner piece, just fabricate something out of it, but then how do I join it to that? Because this isn't exactly very strong either, and neither is that. The other option is just to cut it out. So I don't know, maybe from there down to here and round. Maybe along the side there, follow that line around and then under. I don't know. I can't really see it in the garage, so I think I'll have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. I'll wheel it outside where I can have a proper 360. So I think the lunchbox, which was sat on this bracket here, can go back in but up the other way. So I'll probably have to get another lunchbox, but the lunchbox stays, I'm pleased to say. Now this has got, I can't put this headlight in, and I checked the bulb, and there's two lights for parking lights, like the side lights, but there's no side light in that headlight, and that's the original headlight. And there's nowhere else for one, so I'm not certain if this bike ever had one, because those two were indicators. But there's certainly the cable there, so I've put the screen back on. I can't make one out of that stuff because it's not wide enough. I suppose I could do two strips, I guess. Bolt one on there and then bolt another one there. That might look quite funky. We'll see how that goes. The original fixings are gone, so it was just a little nut and bolt affair. With these ones, the rubbers have gone out, so I couldn't actually screw them in. But that is an LED. Quite a while ago, I bought some LEDs for the dashboard, and never use them. So I've got 4 white ones. So I'm thinking put one there and one there, and that can be the parking lights. And then I might put another one in the mesh there, and then one in the mesh there, and have 4. Don't know. We'll see how it goes, but definitely one in there and one in there. That fills those holes. So final day in the garage. We have a Dani and a GS. I'll try and get some of this in. So she's made the brackets that hold the indicators on. One there, same on the other side. So now we're just fitting the indicators. So you now own a custom motorcycle.
I do. I've taken that off.
Yeah.
Do I stick it in the?
Yeah. Slip it in the hole. the way in. All the way in, go in deeper than that.
You're going to turn it off in a minute. This is serious.
Okay. Have you screwed it all the way in the hole? Right, so now you need to put the washer and the nut back on that cable.
Okay, and then we can move this up, can't we? Oh, I've done it. The strength.
Hang on a second.
I just want to see it.
Okay, put the bolt on.
Hang on a minute.
Put the nut on.
It helps me to work better if I can see it.
Eyeballs is a teeth.
Don't.
The
Right,
face,
okay, I've
some
done
of the
that.
faces that you pull.
I know. You can edit those out.
Okay, I can edit those out.
I want a serious Dani fixing a bike.
Okay.
Otherwise I'll cringe when I watch it. Can you zoom in?
Yeah.
Quality.
Well, you want me to zoom in on that, do you?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Washer. Nut. Right. And then screw it in.
Yep, tightening that. Well, we're rolling.
Okay.
So we've got the rear indicator, well, Dani got the rear indicator brackets fitted, indicators on, switched them on and they stayed on. Each side came on but they stayed on. So we put a new flasher relay in, take two.
So I'm just trying them now.
Yeah.
Right. It's the right one. Oh, hold on. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. I thought you'd done. That would help.
Yeah, that would help.
Yeah, it flashes. It works. Hold on.
And flashes at the front as well. Flashing both sides?
No, it's this one doesn't work.
That one doesn't work?
No.
Ah, so we're 3 out of 4. So a bit more fault finding, I reckon. Right, so another pair of indicators out of the parts bin because the cheapy, crappy ones that I got off of eBay that I had spare, they actually both broke. So we found a couple of old ones that'll do the job. Right, go on then, give us lefty and righty. So right one is working, and the front,
Yeah.
and the left.
Yeah.
There you go. Done. So in the end we just soldered these because the crimping on cables this thin was just a pain in the arse. So there we go, Dani's first attempts at soldering 2 cables together. Pretty swift, I reckon. Not. So now we've got the indicators sorted out and that now works. We're now moving on to the bodywork. So
I've sanded it down. Sanded this down. And I'll be spraying that in a minute.
yeah,
Sanded all this down. As much as I could. A little bit there where I joined it because it was broken.
what grit?
600, wasn't it?
600 grit, yeah, 600 grit. Just to smooth it out and to put a key into it so the paint's got something to grip to. And then we did some repairs which have been nicely sanded out and are pretty much invisible to the touch.
Yeah, see there's one there, but you wouldn't know, would you? Not really. Not really.
Not really. Put my hand over it.
Not really.
Right, so bit of nail varnish remover over the top just to clean it all off. Hang it, spray it. So they're sanded down, hung them up, and I've thrown on 2 coats of the plastic primer because it's the only primer I've got. I need to get some more. So I've had a couple of coats of that on it. And now, Dani, when she stops yawning, is going to be painting them. We're going to go for gloss. I've got some cans of gloss white, just some cheap stuff. But like I said, as this is just a practice run, just use the cheap stuff, and then we can flat that back and then coat it in the matte black, which this bike will be when I can find a matte black that is actually matte and not a satin or gloss finish, even though it says matte on the tin. So there's one can went on, one can did one coat on these things. There's not a lot in those cans at all, so I think we'll go for the one. This is Dani's. Dani did this piece, and she was gracious enough to let me work on her bike and do the other piece. It doesn't really show up on the camera, but there are a couple of runs in there where she got a bit close. So I've layered up the paint on top, and we'll have to flat that back. So this is my one. I was allowed to do this, and I have to say it's come out rather well. Looks like a little bit of orange peel, which, as I understand it from these cheaper rattle cans, is probably down to pressure. Not enough pressure to throw the paint on the actual target. So let's see if we can get an underside of this one. But there, that has come out all right. I am definitely impressed. So now that's got to dry and cure, and then we'll come back with some 2000 grit sandpaper, sand it down, buff it up, and give it a polish. Well, unfortunately that's it for the 4-day garage bonanza. It's been great. I've really enjoyed being out here for 4 days on the trot. I haven't been able to do that for a while. It's been quite nice, and obviously having Dani here as well, working on her bike today, that was good. Enjoyed that, starting to enjoy that project as well. Didn't want the fairing to go back on the FJ originally, and I kind of put it in the back of my mind and dismissed it, and then I saw it there and thought, it gets the project moving again, because that was the hold up. I couldn't see a way out of that without buying stuff, and I didn't really want to start buying stuff in. It's not the way to do it with a rat bike. You're supposed to use what you've got. So it's not the look I want, but it's the look I'm going to start with. And I think the whole thing with rat bikes is you never finish it. It's always an evolution. So I get it up and running with a start point, with everybody working, and then as the garage accumulates bits and pieces, as I'm sure it will, then I can take the front end off, put some different clocks on, and get it looking the way that I see it in here. Still got to change the front end over. That's going to be probably a 2-day job, I think, because I have to make sure that I can start it and finish it in the same day. To have both bikes immovable is not something that I really want, because it's going to make packing away at the end of the night extremely, well, not just difficult, but bloody impossible to get all the other bikes in it. So ideally I want to get the Derby out and gone, so I have got space, and then it is just going to be one of those all hands to the pump, I think. Get in early and swap them over, and it's just going to be that. But I hope that gets on it. Getting the TZR started was really nice, and I really want to get that finished now as well, so that when Dani's got her bike MOT'd, I've got my 125 as well. That'll be interesting. So yeah, great. I've got to pack it all away now. I've got to hang these plastics out the back so they can dry properly, and get all the bikes in, pack up, go home, start editing this, and get all of my stuff sorted out for work tomorrow, because unfortunately I've got to go back there. There you go. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you on the next episode of Who Knows Garage.